welcome everybody to the first regular meeting of the Arlington Board of Education for 2023. Got new board members to speak tonight. It's all exciting stuff. Let's go ahead and call the meeting to order at 7 p.m. please, and take roll.
All right. Nancy Flusner. Here. Chase Crackle.
Here.
Matt O'Daniel.
Here.
Oh, who's this going there? Shannon Wilmot. Here. Jason Arden.
Here.
And Brian Locker.
Here.
Very good. Let's say the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, the first thing on our agenda tonight is item 1.4, which is the approval of this evening's meeting agenda. I have a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the regular meeting agenda as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Chase and Shannon. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Let's vote, please.
Shannon Wilmot. Yes. Brian Locker.
Yes.
Matt O'Daniel.
Yes?
Chase Crackle.
Yes.
Nancy Flusner. Yes. Jason Arden.
Yes. All right, very good. Motion carries. Item 2 on our agenda is welcome to our guests in public forum. We've got a few guests tonight. Thanks for coming. Anybody wishes to speak, we have a sign-in book there. I think it requires that you sign your name and current address there. Yes, sir.
All right. My name is Todd Kwasinski. I'm with DLR Group. I just wanted to congratulate all the new board members. Also want to express our deepest thank you for letting us work with you guys as far as all the renovations and the addition, obviously. Just want to point out that we do have some other business that we'll have to partake in when we get closer to the summertime. And that's going to be an 11th month walkthrough. So as the building starts to wear and as the renovations start being lived in more and more, we start to find maybe a couple of things here. Maybe there's a door squeak, or if it's a major issue like HVAC. And so during that 11-month walkthrough, we're going to schedule that during the summertime to go through and kind of make sure that we have everything picked up as far as unforeseen circumstances where things break. Get those handled in the warranty. So it's been a great project. I think most of the board members are here. I think it's gone well done. I don't know if you agree with that, but
It has, except for the stupid lockers.
right, yeah.
I mean, they're wonderful lockers.
So I just wanted to again stop by and just say thank you, and hope everyone had a great holiday season. So
Thank you.
thanks again. Yep. And I'll fill it up.
Appreciate you.
I just wanted to come real quickly. Michael Dwyer, resident, obviously, and former board member, and welcome the new members to the board. I think I've had the opportunity to talk to everybody just a little bit. I thought perhaps, given the conversations that we had in September, that it might be a good opportunity just to say hello, to let you know that from my perspective, we are partners. We're not here to arm wrestle through this entire process. We really do want to be a resource, mostly for myself. One of the comments that I heard in September was that, well, Lincoln's got to take care of this. We need Lincoln to do something. Sort of by way of an update, I thought I would let you know that the good news is that Lincoln will do something. The comment that I constantly made in September is that I can't guarantee that any of us will completely like what they're going to do. Certainly a very conservative governor. I had spent about 45 minutes with Jim on Wednesday doing some work, and I had the opportunity to really kind of chat a little bit. That was really, really cool. 16 new senators, new education chair, Lynn Walls, that used to be our chair, and over there, Mr. Mermis, new speaker, and even some of the votes today in the last couple of days, clearly I think, say two things. One, officially we have 32 Republican senators, so a significant portion of the body. Most of the votes, some of the votes today were 31. So I think what that tells me as a political wonk is that the conservatives and Republicans are pretty solid. When it comes to tougher votes, they're going to vote probably more as a block than maybe you've seen them do in the past. I don't want to rub the crystal ball and say this is how this is going to happen, but I think it's fair money to say that you'll get a pretty conservative Republican answer to whatever comes out of the solutions for educational funding. Certainly we'll see some changes to other 644 from last year. I think most of those will be strengthening and cleaning it up. So maybe the notification process is a little bit longer, a little bit cleaner, so that both board members and also citizens aren't sort of stuck on that rock and a hard place.
Yeah.
The two things that I would encourage the board, particularly the new board members, one is I think the thing that will help us all is just overt transparency. Just as to the degree that you can, let the public know everything that you're doing. I think, and certainly I know that Matt's made really good attempts to try to do that. I think the culture for people that are concerned about taxes is a little bit more willing, perhaps, to just be here and be engaged as a partner, in addition to just coming in September and yelling and screaming about our taxes. The other piece of that I would encourage the board to do is start that budget process as early as you can. When I was in these chairs, we started talking about the budget in June or July. We didn't do too much of the work because you couldn't set valuations until you knew, you couldn't set the tax rate until you knew what valuations were going to be. But I would encourage you to do as much work as you can on setting that budget. And then in August, all you have to do is necessarily set the rate. To the degree that we can help with that, I would hope that you would think both me personally and the group in a larger sense as a partner. Thank you. It's hard to say questions when you can't do that.
Thanks, Mike. Anyone else? No, very good. Thanks for coming and speaking, everybody. Input is always appreciated, and I think as we go on and talk about our engagement meeting later on, it fits right in with some of those comments. Okay, this portion of our meeting is our annual business meeting, and we get to administer the oath to our new board members and elect officers, et cetera, et cetera. Item 3.1 on here is the oath of office for the new board members. And even though Cassie has already taken it and Jason was reelected, I think the most appropriate thing is to have all three of you retake the oath.
All right.
Have you practiced so we can do it all in unison? Sure.
No.
Everybody got a hard
No, we
copy?
have not.
Okay.
Yes, we have our copy.
All right.
Do we just stand up, or what would you like us to
You
do?
could if you'd like. You could remain seated if you'd like as well, Cassie.
Okay,
It's
and we're all
good.
doing it together?
Let's try it.
So are we skipping our name?
No?
Okay, are you ready?
Can I, we've got a question.
The newspaper would like it if maybe you could all just stand over there in the corner so she get a better picture.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Fine.
Thank you. Maybe you're the other.
You're welcome.
More for you.
Yeah, you can be the little.
Okay. Jordan says, go now. Okay, are you ready?
Yep.
All right. I, Cassie Plesner,
Brian Locker, Jason North.
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Nebraska against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely and without mental reservation or for purpose of evasion, and that I will faithfully and impartially perform the duties of the office of school board member according to law, and to the best of my ability. And I do further swear that I do not advocate, nor am I a member of any political party or organization that advocates the overthrow of the government of the United States or of this state by force or violence. And that during such time as I am in this position, I will not advocate nor become a member of any political party or organization that advocates the overthrow of the government of the United States or of this state by force or violence. So help me God.
Good job, guys. That wasn't so bad.
No, that was pretty good.
Okay, item 3.2 on the agenda is the election of officers, where we open it up for nominations and a vote for president and vice president. This time I'll open the floor for nominations for president.
I nominate Matt Daniel. I second that.
Thanks, guys, appreciate it. Are there any other nominations for the office of president? Seeing none, do we need to hold a vote?
Probably not, you can just do a.
Okay. All right, so we have a nomination for Matt O'Daniel for president. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you. We'll open it up for nominations for the office of vice president.
I will nominate for Chase Craddock for vice president.
Thank you, Cassie. Are there any other nominations for vice president? Okay, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Thanks, everybody. We appreciate your support. And we'll make great efforts to do a good job. Item 3.4 is appoint KSP and PGH&G law firms as the official legal counsel. Oh, we did. Thank you. Okay. So appointment of committees. I kind of played around with this and shot an email out earlier today. Hopefully everybody got a chance to look at it. And just to kind of walk back through it, with Bruce and Janet, of course, leaving, we could shape it up as such with curriculum and civics, with Shannon remaining there being the chair. And we're going to move Jason over to buildings and grounds and add Cassie and Brian to that committee. And then on buildings and grounds, that would give us Brian replacing Bruce, Jason replacing Janet, and leave Shannon there on that committee. And then the finance committee would remain unchanged with Chase, Jason, and I. And negotiations committee, Chase and Bruce and I were on. With Bruce's absence, we would slide Cassie into his slot. And then there's also the St. Paul's liaison that Bruce vacated his seat there, and I thought we would slide Brian into that role. What do you guys think? It seemed to make the most sense to me in the conversations I've had with the two board members. Okay?
Yep.
All right, Shannon? Okay, all right. Do you have all that?
Yep. Can you
Okay.
just run down the members of each committee? I've got 2 of them down, but I didn't get the other 2.
Okay.
I gave you the paper. that-
So for curriculum and civics, we'll have Shannon, Cassie, and Brian.
Okay.
And Shannon's the chair on that committee.
Mhm.
And then buildings and grounds, we'll have Brian, Jason, and Shannon. We'll need to determine a chair for that committee.
And then Matt, Jason, Jason, Matt, finance.
Yep.
Chase, Matt, Cassie, negotiations.
Mm-hmm.
St. Paul's, Chase, and Brian.
Correct.
Okay.
Got all that? Okay. We good?
Got 'em? Yeah, we got 'em.
Okay. All right. so that brings us to 3.4, which is appoint KSB and PGH&G law firms as the official legal counsel of the board and superintendent. KSB and Perry are the law firms that we've used for, gosh, I think as long as I've been on the board. And we continue to use them in the upcoming year. This would require a motion and a vote. So do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to appoint KSB and Perry Law Firm as official legal counsel to board and superintendents.
I'll second that. Been moved and seconded. Is there any more discussion?
And I just wanted to add that we typically go to KSP for advice and legal things, but a lot of times Perry Law Firm writes up the new policies that come out of the legislature, so that's
Okay.
why we have both of them, and those two different firms.
Or we utilize both?
Right, and we typically don't end up paying Perry Law Firm for those who have come through
Yeah.
ESU free, but since they're writing some of those policies.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any more discussion? Let's vote, please.
Chase Credible,
Yes.
Brian Locker,
Yes.
Matt O'Daniel,
Yes?
Shannon Wilmot,
Yes.
Jason Earl,
Yes.
Kathy Klesmer.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Motion carries. Next item is 3.5 is to appoint First State Bank and Trust as our official depository for all district funds. Of course, First State Bank is Two Rivers Bank, or was Two Rivers Bank, right?
It was, yes.
Which was our official depository of last year. So we're staying with the same bank. I'll make a motion to appoint First State Bank as official depository of district funds.
I will second.
Hey, it's been moved and seconded. Thank you, Cassie. Is there any more discussion? Let's vote, please.
Jason Earl,
Yes.
Kathy Klesmer,
Yes.
Chase Credible,
Yes.
Brian Locker,
Yes.
Matt O'Daniel,
Yes.
Shannon Wilmot.
Yes.
All right, very good. Motion carries. Item 3.6 is to distribute the conflict of interest forms for all of these board members. We have copies attached here. Trying to remember, Dr. Lewis, if we normally hand out hard copies, is there a requirement for signature?
I was thinking that there was a form that they could specifically fill out, like I have this as conflict of interest, but it was not in my documents anywhere, and then it got me thinking that maybe it was a form that we filled out at my previous ones, because I could not find a different form anywhere. So basically just let me know. You can also do it in the course of a board meeting, but if you have a known conflict, like we have a contract with a company that you work for, let us know those things. But if one just comes up on occasion, if you wouldn't vote for something because you had a particular conflict of interest, just abstain with conflict. Would be the best way to do that. But if you do have a relationship with a contract that we hold or something like that, let me know and we can file that in the office and I can create a form. I just can't find any more files anywhere.
Yeah, and these will always be attached to the January agenda to go back for reference. Also, of course, they are numbered policies, so you can find them on the website too.
And if you have a question about whether or not you may have a conflict of interest, Marcia Herring is a good resource to go to for NASB. Or you can visit with Matt, and you can visit with myself too, and we can help you whittle that down. Because some things initially may not seem like, but they are, and then some things may seem like one, and they're really not, so.
Okay. Item 3.7 is to approve the Arlington Citizen as the official newspaper of the Board of Education.
I'll make a motion to appoint the Arlington Citizen as the official newspaper of the district.
Thank you, Chase and Shannon. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any more discussion? Let's vote, please.
Matt O'Daniel,
Yes.
Shannon Wilmot, Jason Earl,
Yes.
Kathy Klesmer,
Yes.
Chase Credible,
Yes.
Brian Locker.
Yes.
Okay, very good. That motion carries. Item 3.8 is appoint our superintendent as the district non-discrimination compliance coordinator. Dr. Lewis, anything you want to add here?
Not really.
Okay.
it's just that all of the different things that we work on, like the Title IX, so this is anti-discrimination and we Title IX, all of those things that have to do with any type of discrimination that could happen. I'm probably already named in the policies anyway, but I think we need to do this every year.
Okay, I'll make a motion to appoint Dr. Lewis as District Non-Discrimination Compliance Coordinator.
Second.
Thank you, Jason. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, let's go ahead and vote, please.
Ryan Locker,
Yes.
Chase Cradaville,
Yes.
Cassie Klesner,
Yes.
Jason Art,
Yes.
Shannon Moore,
Yes.
Matt O'Donnell.
Yes. Very good. Motion carries. Item 3.9 is appoint the superintendent as secretary and business manager as recording secretary to the Board of Education. This is also something we do each and every year. So, we have a motion.
I'll make a motion to appoint the superintendent as secretary and the business manager as recording secretary to the Board of Education.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Chase and Brian. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any more discussion? Seeing none, let's vote, please.
Just a second, I have to type
Okay.
it up. Was Chase and Brian?
Brian, yes.
All right, now I'm good. Jason Art,
Yes.
Cassie Klesner,
Yes.
Chase Cradaville,
Yes.
Ryan Locker,
Yes.
Matt O'Donnell,
Yes.
Shannon Moore.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Motion carries. We are through the organizational part of our meeting, and moving into the consent agenda. We have the previous board meetings and the monthly financial reports. Dr. Lewis, is there anything in the financial reports you want to pull out?
There's probably a couple
No,
things that lend themselves to a little bit
Okay.
more explanation, so we'll pull this up here. To make it bigger on my screen so I can see it. Mrs. Arp is going to help me explain a couple of things too, but so you see the interfund transfer again, at lunch, the December transfer. Was this the November one got done in December, so there were two or three times from that?
November did not get done in November, so it was also done in December at the same time, so.
Yeah.
But the amount is a little larger.
Very normal, because our checks are still getting cut out, so that was the payroll transfer. It's the only thing that's included in that now. So the checks are still coming out of hot lunch fund and they're being written directly out of there, so you see disbursements coming out of there. Part of that is $17,000 approximately worth of checks and things like that that got cut, and then there's the
Yeah.
transfers, the rest of it, so.
So that's payroll, benefits, any?
Yeah,
Like
Anything,
fees to
anything connected to payroll is
Okay.
part of that transfer. And then if you scroll on to the next page, I mean, you can go ahead and take a look at our balances. If you want me to go through those specifically. And our list of bills, nothing typically out of the ordinary there that we're seeing. Electric bill was a little bit lower than last month, but we had some fewer days, so that always helps on the electric bill a little bit. If we skip ahead to the page where we have our percentages of receipts received, expenditures dispersed throughout the year, we'll just explain a little more detail, a transfer that you see there or a deposit. So I'm gonna let Jennifer explain that because she and Tammy Clausen have worked on that when we were trying to get the payroll to come out of hot lunch and things like that. So if you want to explain what that looks like and what we're working on moving forward with that.
So when we were trying to get the hot lunch payroll to come out of the hot lunch account, I was advised to cut a check for all of the payroll taxes and the retirement and all those things because it's a direct withdrawal from our account. And so to make sure they were all being done at this correctly, Tammy had advised me to do it, cut a check to the school, from the school, and then deposit it. So then it just would hopefully in the system show better than what our reconciliations are showing because the payroll taxes don't ever show because it's a direct withdrawal from the bank account. I submit it to the federal and then they just withdraw it from the account. So I have to input that manually every month into the finance system. So we thought this check was going to maybe clear the things out. Well, it didn't work because the payroll from Hot Lunch did not come out of the Hot Lunch account. So I just wanted to make a note that there was a deposit made for that 179, it's kind of off to the side there, into other revenues, which was not, it was not a revenue, it was a wash. It came out of our account and it was deposited into our account. But I just wanted to make note of it so that you weren't seeing a huge revenue in that miscellaneous and wondering why we got that much revenue for that, but there was no actual revenue.
Sometimes-
And so
to work with the
This is
auditors
the
to
one
figure out
time that I did
functional
it, it's not gonna
Yeah.
work, so we're just doing it like regular.
So sometimes you write a check to yourself to get the posting in the accounts
Yes,
to try
and
to
it-
reconcile.
It didn't,
Yeah,
it didn't work, so.
So going forward, what will that look like going forward?
It'll look like it's always looked, I'll post it in our systems and I'll reconcile it in our systems, but it will never show up here on any of the revenues or it shows up in the general, expenses, as it does every month. But I just, I won't have to make a deposit
Got it.
back into the account.
It was an experiment.
Yeah. We thought that was a
That
way,
didn't work. Got
we
it.
thought that would be the way to make it so that it would show in the finance system correctly, so that when the auditors at the end of the year, all of those taxes are showing, because right now I have to manually do it all.
Yep.
And it just didn't work. It didn't work like we thought it was gonna work, because that hot lunch piece doesn't come out of, the payroll that won't come out of the hot lunch account, so it actually made it not, it didn't do anything, it just did, it's not gonna.
created a lot of work.
So yeah, so this is the only time,
And that 179 encompassed,
the federal taxes, the state taxes, the retirement, all of that gets paid out each month.
so that covered the 1 month.
Yes,
Got
yes, it was just the first month and it, like I said, it didn't work, so then we went back to just doing it the whole way.
Got it. Okay.
I had a question on this page actually too. And I don't know if it's really a question that anybody here can answer, but what, when we look at our revenues received in property taxes, car taxes, motor vehicle taxes, we're like way behind the curve of where we were at last year. Do you know?
Well, it is.
Because obviously that money
yeah.
comes from the county and.
Right,
Yeah,
and it's kind of about when it's received as well, but, so our increase for taxes doesn't kick in until the 23 collections
Right.
begin, so. What we have budgeted for, and it's gonna look like we're behind too, because we budgeted less to
Yeah.
receive in taxes last year, and we were at a little bit of a lower rate. So now we've budgeted more, and the rate's going to increase, but it just hasn't caught up yet. So as the larger ones come in, what we receive in January will be from December yet. But then what we receive moving forward will be at the change valuation, all of that. So that's, it looks a little bit like it's behind from where it was last year, but all of those factors in place, considering that we asked for more in property taxes this year than we did the previous year, and the rate is going to be different as well too. So for budget year, so that does look a little funky for now.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Hey, real quick, Matt.
Yeah.
Just, I don't see it on here.
Okay.
So clarify, Jen, and remind me of my memory here. Tammy Clausen. I got 2 people in my mind. What entity does she serve?
So Tammy was the previous bookkeeper at Logan View who has recently
Okay,
retired.
gotcha.
She was helping me out.
Yeah, so she, and I saw on previous months we were paying her still. What's this, our agreement there currently?
She is, right now, she is just helping out with questions when I have them.
Okay,
So unless she comes here to do anything, we won't be paying her.
got it. So it's kind of a as needed,
Yes.
if you will, and then
Yes.
billed as that needed.
Yes.
Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay.
And if you remember from our audit,
Yep.
I still have not received that.
That's my next question.
Yeah, from Brenda. So she did offer to do an engagement with us to assist for a couple of months and to just make sure now that the first few months of reconciliations are on track, so we're in a good position moving forward. And I talked to her last week and she said, I'll get that to you, and I haven't received it yet, so.
Got it.
Probably,
On
I
the
don't know what that
reconciliation and
engagement
things,
will look
okay.
like. Yeah, I'm not sure what that engagement will look like yet. I'm still waiting for her to get back to me. So.
Got it.
You good, Jason?
Yeah.
Shannon? Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Jason. Chase. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any more discussion? Let's vote, please.
Nancy Plesner,
Yes.
Chase Carrico,
Yes.
Brian Locker,
Yes.
Matt O'Daniel,
Yes.
Shannon Woolmark,
Yes.
Jason Mark.
Yes.
All right, very good. Motion carries. That brings us into our curriculum reports this evening.
We have Mrs. Coger here to present for business, and then all three of our fourth grade teachers. So I'll let Mrs. Coger go first.
Okay, most of our report is included here, but curriculum-wise, we are looking at the new information technology law that goes into effect for our students who will be entering their freshman year next year. We've been meeting on that, trying to figure out what our best plan of action is. And that'll be coming to you from Mr. Fingston at a point later in time. We meet the requirement for the personal finance graduation. Kids can either take one semester of basic personal finance or a semester of college credit personal finance along with college credit macroeconomics, because we're hitting our economic standards through our personal finance class. They're also required to take information technology 1 and 2, which gives them information in Microsoft Office as well, and that will be part of what we're going to be using with our new requirement. As far as our student learning, a couple of outside things that we've done to show that our students are learning is we do give them the WISE Financial Literacy Certification Test. That is a national test, and our students have been doing very well on that. In the fall, 100% of the students pass that financial literacy exam. It is pretty stringent. It hits 4 different areas. It's really interesting to look at as a teacher because I mixed up what order I taught things this year, and their highest scores were on what we just had covered. So, where last year that was the case too, and I thought, well, maybe I didn't spend enough time on this, so I switched things around, and that one went up, and the first one I did went down. So, I don't know what to do about the retention there, but just an interesting observation. We also, through the Microsoft IT initiative, were able to test our students for MOS certification, so that's Microsoft Office Specialist. So they take a test in those 4 areas to show that they are proficient in Microsoft Office. So that is all paid for, both of those programs. Through outside funds, there's no cost to us as a district, and it's a great resume builder for our students to put on there. Also, just some enrichment activities that we have. Obviously, we have FBLA. We've had a significant number of students that are participating. They put in over 1,000 hours of community service last year. We did have 17 go to the national conference in Chicago, and we did have some students that placed there, which is an extremely difficult thing to have happen because there's about 15 to 18,000 students there now, and it's now an international conference. So our one team that was in finals was against a team from Canada, a team from China. So it's definitely a lot harder to place than even what it used to be. So that was exciting. We currently have 2 state officers of the 6-member state officer team. So, and we have 2 students that are going to run for an office this year coming up. Our students have been highly engaged in the Strive program, where they're able to provide performances in music as well as sporting events online for people to watch. And that's been a great asset to people that aren't able to come to games, a way for people to go back and look at those and watch them. So that is an exciting thing for our kids, and they've really grown and do a great job with that. So if you haven't listened to them on there, go take a chance to listen sometimes. I'll go pull it up after a game and listen for a little bit if it's students I know that are broadcasting it. We continue to operate the bank in school. We've made that shift from Two Rivers Bank. We're still using Two Rivers Bank for branch of First State Bank is how we refer to ourselves, but that transition has went well. We're back to operating in person on Friday mornings, and we're right at the $30,000 mark for the amount of money the kindergarten through sixth graders have saved. So those are some good enrichment activities to be teaching our content to kids outside of the actual school day. And then right now we have 3 courses that are offered for college credit through Metro. And as I'm sure you've heard, Metro has actually waived the tuition through fall of or spring of 2025. Yeah. So anybody have any questions?
Mrs. Cobra, I'm curious, and I know you're biased here because FBLA is kind of your baby.
Kind of, yeah.
What do you see as far as feedback from students on, I mean, you look at 85 students, I mean, that's 12.5% of our entire school, almost. What do you see them, I want to get involved with FBLA because of this, or what has this done for them? What are those reasons?
And a lot of them are kids who don't necessarily become a business major, but my thing is you're gonna deal with business no matter what you major in. Business is everything, whether you operate a seed dealership, you're gonna have to do your books, whatever you do revolves around business. So I think the biggest thing for our kids is it's a great way to provide community service for them. We do so much community service, they make connections, it builds their resume. We talk a lot about finding competitive events to do that you have an interest in, and exploring, trying new things, and just that ability to be successful. I always try to come up with a way that at least every kid earns some sort of recognition. So there's some things that even those who aren't great test takers, if they're willing to come in and spend a lot of time, they can do well in that. So it's just a way to give them some success and help them feel good about their path as they move forward. So, but our numbers are down a little bit, but because we were hitting hundreds, but we are down a bit. That's not always a bad thing.
She could submit with pizza.
Yes, we eat a lot of pizza. We eat a lot of pizza. I should have bought stock in like a pizza company.
Well,
But
just a comment, not a question, a whole ton of success stories right there in that sheet, between FBLA, Strive, Bank School, I mean, all great stuff. Thank you.
so, yeah. So if you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out. If not, I'll see you in 2 years. Which will be my second to last 4 years.
You have to count down. 1, 2.
Oh, thank you, Mrs. Coger, as always.
And then we have Mrs. Sanders and Mrs. Prinzo and Mrs. Stork.
Yeah.
So we're already kind of upfront, so we're gonna remain seated if that's okay.
Not a problem.
So I'm Lisa Stork, one of the 4th grade teachers, and we typed up our report for you guys. We thought that you could read it though, because we kind of wanted to share one of the projects that we worked on that isn't necessarily reflective up there. This year is our first year implementing new ELA reading standards, and they're very difficult. We also got new curriculum to match it, and one of the projects that 4th grade team was working on several times at the end of last year and over the summer was we sat down and we read our standards, and then we opened up our teachers' manuals, and the first story is a story about Buzz Aldrin going to the moon. And it's a great story, it's nonfiction, and the standard that goes with it, the skill that it wants us to teach is very hard. And so what we did was we sat down and we went through all of our new standards and organized them, paced them out throughout the school year in a way that made more sense to our kids. So it took a lot of work on the front end, but it's really paying off. We started out with a fictional story because students tend to have a little bit more background knowledge and feel a little bit more comfortable in a fictional story, where the standards are more asking, who are the characters, what's the setting, the plot, those kinds of things. So we could really build up their reading stamina before we got to the tougher standards. And we've seen a lot of success with our kids. This group is a wonderful group. They need a lot of repetition and a lot of hard work, but we really like the curriculum. We like the idea of our pacing guide. It really it's a great way to get to know your standards as well, because you have to know what you're teaching, and it was a lot really just to go through them for sure, because they had a lot of verbiage in them that we had to look and compare and discuss on how we wanted to assess and how we wanted to present that information to them. So it was a big project, but, we're really enjoying it so far.
Yeah, and I would just add, we also have done as a team, I haven't done a whole lot, but they have. We've done a really good job of trying to get the fourth graders out and about, like in the state and in little local things that we can, because it's a big, fourth grade is a big Nebraska history year. And so we found some free or reduced cost little field trips that we've been able to kind of get them to see and giving some experiences there. And then we planned a big week for Nebraska's birthday coming up. So we're really excited to get the kids kind of engaged that way. And we bring some food and we do some covered wagons and we do just some fun things. So that's coming up here in March and that'll be something the kids will all look forward to. It makes fourth grade special.
Ditto to everything they said.
Right.
I just may keep my mouth shut.
A lot of fun down on that end,
There is a lot of fun.
right? Yeah.
Yes.
But they work really hard. They do put a lot of heart and soul into it. You might have to nudge them a little bit, but for the most part, if you ask them to, they will produce.
Yeah.
Do you, and this is to any of you ladies, with this new curriculum, is it, you kind of touched upon it, Mrs. Stark, a little bit, trying to line it up with those standards. Is this new curriculum kind of hard to intertwine into that, or is it more on the standard end? In other words, I guess what I'm asking, is it a curriculum deal that's kind of hard to mesh with it, or is it a standard deal where it wouldn't really matter what curriculum you're using?
I think just the way that the standards, some of them are worded, that was a hurdle for us, just sitting down and figuring out how we were going to interpret it amongst the three of us. But anytime you get a new curriculum, there's room for growth, there's room to, I think we could still benefit from learning a little bit more about like the website. Their website hasn't been very supportive on the reading side. So I think it's both, to answer your question. Just living the curriculum for a year and living the standards is something that I think every grade can attest to anytime we get something new. And we just got them both at the same time, so it's like two hurdles in one, so.
Got it. Makes sense, thank you.
Have you guys seen any like effects from COVID, like not having the kids in school? Have you like noticed anything specifically with this class? They're not falling in line with other classes, or they're behind in an area, or have they kind of pretty normal?
I don't know that I mean, it's hard for me sometimes to pinpoint like that is because of COVID. And I also personally feel like we're moving past it, like we're getting to the point where it's hard to say that that's what it is. I think every group comes with their own personality sets. And this group, they're great kids. I would say sometimes we just have to have different like maturity conversations about like responsibilities in the classrooms, but I could have said that about a class 5 years ago. It's just the mix of kids that you get sometimes, if they're with their best friends or if they're testing out new friendships, because fourth grade and they're 10. So it just kind of depends. I wouldn't say.
Nothing's like blatant, like, oh, this is a new issue. No.
And I think we come in like pretty beefed up because of the COVID years. We know we're gonna start with this and it's gonna be reviewed pretty hard for a month, and that's just been something we started way back when the COVID thing was something. They came from not having school, so we started with that chunk of review. And I think starting every year that way has just been successful, like giving them something to feel confident with in that first couple weeks, that first month, and then really hitting the ground with our curriculum. Because we've paced out the standards, we know we're gonna hit everything before our end of the year check marks, so we can feel good giving a couple weeks to some review skills and giving those pieces to them early on.
It's kind of like building their stamina, because they come in and you want to really push that, both in your language arts part, with reading the longer stories and such, as well as your math ones as well.
But it's also just building classroom skills of, organization, here are your folders, and here's what you do when you're done with your papers. I mean, in elementary, it's a different beast at the beginning of the year, so.
Fourth grade's a big jump.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Any more questions? Thanks for being here tonight. We appreciate you.
Yep.
All you guys do. It's good stuff. So we move in. You're welcome to stay. I always say that, right? The coats start flying around.
You're dismissed.
Thank you, guys.
Yep, see ya. So first up on our principals reports, Mr. Shade's got his report in here, highlighting some of the academic all-state. If you have a chance to browse through that, have any questions for Mr. Shada? Chasing down Cassie and Brian, many times Mr. Shada's either late or misses board meetings because he's hosting an athletic event or supervising an athletic event. I'm sure tonight he's.
It is, it's
Reserve.
reserve
Okay.
boys basketball.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah,
He was
Okay.
doing concession stand for it tonight, I think.
right.
There's new things.
So good stuff there. Mr. Fingston? You have for
I'd
us,
say
sir.
the only other thing to highlight on here is this will be the first year where we have our
Okay.
wrestling invite this weekend. It's Saturday, and it'll be our first posting of girls wrestling invite as well. So we'll be incorporating that. It'll be I don't know, these things are historic for us, and I'm just a lot of pride in what we've got going with the girls wrestling program. So if you're able to, come and check it out for a little bit and see how it goes. It's very interesting. It's very, there's a lot of understanding that a lot of the athletes out there are giving this their first, like this is their first experience with wrestling. So there's a lot more understanding officiating wise with the coaches, with the athletes. It's just, it's a cool thing. So if you have a chance, Saturday, we host both boys and girls wrestling. And it's something we're pretty proud of what the girls are doing. We went to Malcolm this weekend. I believe we were the only school who brought cheerleaders to cheer along our athletes. It's like we want to do these things right, and it's just there's an understanding. I want you to know that the school takes pride in what's going on. We're going to do it right. So if you have a chance, come in on Saturday.
When's a good time to come up?
That's a good question. I asked James how we're going to organize it. Because,
Yeah.
And I can send that out, we can talk and I can send that out to the
Yeah,
board, so you
that's a
know
good
what it
idea.
might be at a time.
Yeah, we're going to run them concurrently, so like weight classes at
Yeah.
the same time, so not girls separate from boys. Girls will be
Interest
wrestling
groups,
separate
yeah.
from boys, but
But the weight
we'll
class,
stack
two
the weight
brackets will be
classes
at the
as
same
they go.
time.
they will be striped and club.
We have in the
Yeah.
past, so I don't know the details on that.
Yeah, so, but we'll get more information out to you, and again,
Okay.
but it's been good, it's been fun to watch. It's a new level of excitement and interest watching
It
the
is.
girls.
It is.
They've learned
And the
a
guys are
lot.
doing great too.
Yeah, they
It's just
are.
that's
When you add something.
less historic, because we've been doing that for a while. Okay, my report, we have Lions Club screening, requirement for each year. We'll do 7th grade and 10th grade on our side. Elementary, I'm not sure, which you do all, okay. We began department planning meetings. Some of the things that Mrs. Koger was, referencing is there's a new statute coming that we have to provide, at least a semester computer science class. That is a requirement. So we're figuring out, is that a standalone class? Does that get incorporated into one of our classes that's already required? Because we already have more than what we're required to by the state for graduation requirements. So anytime you add another semester requirement, you don't put that into a class you already have or whatever, then you are taking away the potential for electives because you're adding another requirement. So we're figuring that out. There will be more to come with that probably at the next board meeting, because that will be also incorporated into textbook and materials adoption for business, ag, and industrial tech. So parent-teacher conferences are next month. They'll be before our next meeting, so Wednesday and Thursday, February 8th and 9th. It'll be open house style like we have in the past. Metro update, our Metro navigators begin helping students complete registration for Kickstart dual enrolled classes. Here's what we learned this semester. we learned that it is for a metro enrolling of students issue, better to start a little sooner than it is to start as one of the last schools to start, because some of our Kickstart sections are full. So we have had to get creative with student enrollment as far as those sections not being closed because other schools have taken up all of the open spaces. So we're having to get creative with a speech. I'm overgeneralizing, but with a speech offering and going kind of a different route instead of Kickstart, doing College Now, which the Kickstart runs basically for the course of time that our semester runs. The College Now is on the Metro's trimesters. That doesn't start till, I think, March, end of February, and runs until, I think it's the 24th of May. So we're having to have some of our students that wanted to sign up for the Kickstart class that is now closed, have to sign up for the College Now class, which in the long run, they're both dual enrolled or concurrent enrolled. The Kickstart lines up a lot better with our schedule. So, learning experiences. And then the spring musical, I put this in here just because we have had the cast announced. So just as an awareness, in March, we'll be performing Cinderella, and you can enjoy that here in the upcoming months. So.
Fun.
One other lesson is the fire extinguishers in the van are not anchored to anything. So sometimes if you take a corner and somehow the pin was not in the fire extinguisher, it has a chance of going off as you round the entrance ramp to I-80, and you start seeing a white cloud of smoke up towards you as you drive. I learned that on Saturday on my way back from Malcolm. So
Yeah.
So we did have a fire extinguisher go off in a vehicle, one of our vans. I don't know
These things
how.
only happen to him, just for reference.
I'm guessing because the pin is attached with like a little chain, maybe that got caught, because I mean,
Somehow.
you hear them shift every once in a while, but it must have got caught on like a bolt under a seat or something
Yeah.
like that and pulled out just right. I'm glad it was you and not me, because I drive that van all the time.
Well, that's how it got loose, I guess.
Yeah.
Dr. Lewis, crazy driving.
At least you did that for you. You know, like I rigged that up. So.
Oh, yeah.
So I do have a story about the fire extinguisher going off as I'm merging onto I-80 this weekend.
Yeah, you put that in the book, huh?
He did a pretty nice job detailing it.
Yeah, I did. I took it to Tommy's yesterday.
Yeah.
I was there for about 45 minutes. This is after I did somewhat of a job on it on Saturday. After 45 minutes, I was like, okay, I can keep doing this for a long
So
time.
Mr.
and not
Fixon,
get
what
it done.
is inside of the fire extinguisher?
There is a whitish, yellowish powder that comes out and quickly envelops a van unless you quickly put the windows down, and it tastes very bitter.
Sodium bicarbonate.
Yeah, there you go.
And we know,
Thank
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh.
The big question is
So that
what's
would
the
take
best
care
way
of
to
a grease
clean it?
fire too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll let you know.
You too.
Jackie, what do you have for us?
All right, in January, I do our elementary action plan. The top one is our math numbers. So the black, 62% of students met or exceeded benchmark in Fastbridge. We wanted to get 72 by Christmas. We just missed that by a few. We're at 69%. We're shooting for 77 by the end of the year. And that's just looking at Fastbridge. And then down below there are just some action items that we do in order to try to meet those goals. And then the second part on there is ELA. You'll notice, just like our data has been showing, our ELA scores are lower. We were at 38%. We want to get to 55. We're at 44. So we're going to shoot for 60 by the end of the year. 60% would be a pretty big jump for us. Normally at the bottom, I have my sunshines and rainbows where I get to talk about all the fun things we did at Christmas. However, the snow day prevented, I think the middle school, high school kids were like super stoked about snow day right before break. Elementary kids, devastation. Like that's our like fun day. We like do cookies. We've got jammies and movies and fun stuff, and we didn't do any of that. So So there's no sunshine and rainbows. No sunshine and rainbows in the elementary this month.
Wow.
It's all business. It's all business. All business right now.
Questions for Mrs. Morgan before we move on? No, thank you. And that brings us into our superintendent's report. Dr. Lewis, do you want to go over the lead log first?
Yeah, I mean, you can certainly take some time to review that, but just basically since last time we reviewed it, took including Thanksgiving, during Thanksgiving, then a floating holiday there. We have 3 of those in my contract. Christmas break ended up being a little strange this year because the day that I was going to be gone for Christmas was the 23rd, and then that got canceled because I would have been traveling into a blizzard, and I didn't want to do that, so I stayed and worked on the 23rd and the 26th. And then I had an uncle who passed away, so there's in the middle of it there, the 28th was actually a bereavement day, and then Christmas was actually taken with my family on the 29th, so that looks just a little funny this year. And so I made some notes about that, but I was in most days, but I didn't work full days, all those, so I just notated that at the bottom, so about a full day and a half of vacation during Christmas break, and then just half of a sick day for a follow-up with still.
Yeah. Okay.
The NERCSA and NASB member updates are attached for you to go ahead and review. And I will point out in the NERCSA update for you to review, there's a couple of hyperlinks in there about some of the information we're going to talk about on my next point here. So if you scroll through about the middle of them, there's more details in the plans there that NERCSA has been working on with Dave Welch. There's a box right on my desk. And so you can hyperlink to the actual spreadsheet too, but I did attach the spreadsheet here as well. So just take some time when you can to review those. And then we start getting into the legislative updates. So I'll dive into the Nebraska plan in just a second, but I just kind of reviewed Mr. Dwyer, like Mike said earlier. He was looking for his dad when I said Mr. Dwyer earlier. So there's a lot of new senators this year, a lot of new legislators. The unicameral's gonna look a little bit different on top of lots of new people due to people term limiting out, choosing not to run. Actually, somebody passed away. We've got lots of new people on there who are learning the things. On top of that, Patrick O'Donnell, who has been the clerk of the legislature for 44 years, retired this session, so they have a new clerk as well. This is the first session of the 108th legislature, so this is a longer session. And as of today, which I think is just the second day after they do the housekeeping stuff of bill introduction, they've got 205 bills introduced already. So they're gonna be busy. I kind of perused through them a little bit today, and you get the reading copies, and you're not exactly sure how all of them are going to be, and there's some to adjust some things, and the one, there's a bill out to clarify how we need to adjust our minimum wage, how we need to stair step that, and so I printed off some of those. One that popped out, and I think it was Senator Urban, but I can't remember for sure because I didn't write that down, that caught my attention right away was LB 177, which is called the My Student, My Choice bill. So we'll watch that one pretty carefully coming up, but basically that it allows the legislature to take the average per pupil funding for every student in public schools in the state of Nebraska and then allocate that much into a special trust or savings account for students that are attending non-public or parochial or homeschool or whatever else. And so whatever the per pupil funding is, puts that amount in per pupil of students that are attending other non-public schools in the state, and then the parents could access those funds. But I mean, it's the way it is written, and this is mine, not a lobbyist and not a legislator, but the way I read it, they could buy a lot more things with those funds than we can buy for the students that attend public schools. Like they can use them for private tutors, and they can use them for uniforms, and they can use it for this, and they can use it for that. So it really, it's one to watch, and I don't, just because it is quite
liberal in the way it could be applied. I feel like that probably won't go too far. I don't think there'll be much of a stomach for that. But again, it's not, I mean, this is probably the fourth year in a row that we saw some intention of public uses going to private schools. And so that's one that really grabbed my attention when I was reading. So then the one that is not a bill yet, but NERCSA is fine with me sharing, and it's attached here for board members to read, but it's also in that member update, and I just wasn't sure if it was public yet, but they said, please share it with the board members. Was the Nebraska plan. This is crafted by a board member, Dave Welch, out of Milford. And so he's been really involved in our legislative committee for NERCSA and our executive committee as well. And so he's done a lot of research. Kind of came from what was known as the Columbus Plan last year, which was written by a business manager and superintendent, basically. So, which it would have been a good bill, but it didn't have the support of the entire state. So what you try and do is you craft something that will benefit taxpayers and benefit the majority of schools. And so we can kind of read, I'm not gonna read through it all here, but you can go ahead and read through that. So what this would do, it would try and bring more schools back into equalization, not by throwing more money at it, really, kind of, but by lowering within the formula the rate at which ag lands. It would reduce that down to, I have to pull that to read this. Ag land would be down to 42%. Real, which was at 96, would be down to 86%, and then it would account for 10% basic funding for all school districts. So the school districts that aren't getting anything at all right now would receive at least 10% of their funds from the state. So the pockets of money that he had kind of put in there that would potentially be available for use for the plan were initially unclaimed funds from, is it 11? Find it here. Unclaimed. Anyway, the income tax credit or the rebate that was going unclaimed. Last year it was a lot higher, but that decreased this year, we learned. But at one point in time, almost 40% of those funds were going unclaimed. He said it was closer to 30% this year, and as more people realize that they could be taking that might go away. But there was, and others would just come from the general fund. Feeling like there's a lot in reserves right now, that it would be a good year to try and offer a bill like this. So what this would do is it would lower the burden on your school districts. The models for this, if we apply it strictly to Arlington, would lower the general fund levy as it currently sits for like this school year from 95 cents down to almost 26 cents off of that. So down to like under 60 cents, if I read that right. Let me pull up the spreadsheet real quick and just find it. Let's see if it would reduce us down to 59 cents in the general fund. So that's the attempt. Basically, it lowers what you can collect from your property values within the formula. It doesn't fix anything with like assessed valuations or property values soaring sky high or anything like that. And it's just one solution. I mean, we've seen multiple solutions over the years, but it does guarantee some basic funding. I believe Governor Flint has a plan as well too, that he shared with a few people in education organizations, but we were asked to not talk about any details of this plan yet because it's not formulated into anything like this. It doesn't have projections run with it as the Nebraska plan does, and it's not written in a bill form yet. So he said not to share it.
So Dr. Lewis, I've seen more about Governor Flint's plan than I have the Nebraska plan. Do you know, is there a state senator that's going to carry the Nebraska plan and introduce it?
I would suspect someone in Dave Welch's arena there too, and I'm not sure who his senator is right now, but we'll see. You know, we're hopeful. The the big part is getting all of the organizations before you really write it into a bill, which has to happen relatively quickly. I'm sure somebody's working on it already, but you have to get all of the largest schools and the smallest schools to support it.
Which they won't
Which
agree,
is
but
challenging.
yeah.
And unfortunately, a lot of times what you run into, and you don't like it to be a large schools versus a small schools or even a mid-sized schools, but a lot of times what happens is no matter what, the very biggest schools, one that's relatively close to us, the largest school, sometimes gets offended that anyone else is getting any money when they feel like, so it doesn't matter if it brings them more funding as well. If it's also bringing more funding to some of the very smallest schools, they don't think it's equitable because they truly don't believe, some of those people truly do not believe that any of the small schools should get any state funding. So they just won't always support it. And, and we saw that in print. I think the World Herald printed an actual OPS board member last year who stated they shouldn't get any more
And
because
I
of
went,
their valuations.
I went to the only one I care about, which was our school, to see the
That's
equalization.
where I went to, great.
And it looked like 2 million and change would come in
An increase,
equalization
yeah.
money based upon this.
Mhm.
So basically, they're shifting
Mhm.
the funding who carried,
Mhm.
they're taking it less off ag land and
Mhm.
more on the state funding in that formula
Mhm.
for us.
It's trying to balance out what they've been referring to as a three-legged stool for a long time, but, so yeah, that's the intent of it.
Yeah.
So we'll see if it's anything that they can make happen, and that's what we all do, we all go and look and see what that will do to ours, but the one thing that, I did ask specifically about the Nebraska plan when we're talking about it, was what does this do? Does this remove, like, option funding from the equation? And this one does not. There's other plans out there that may or may not.
Yeah. Fasten your seatbelts.
Or just mentally prepare and be hopeful and we'll see.
Yeah, there's been an appetite to accomplish this ever since I've been on the school board, which I think is about 10 years or 11 years. And I don't think they've made any progress. There's a lot of excess funds down in Lincoln, and that can be good or bad. Let's hope that, as Michael would say, the good news is they're probably going to do something. Bad news is they're probably gonna do something. Yeah, so we'll be paying close attention to all that. Thanks for the updates.
Yeah.
Matt, just a very quick point of order. Bill introduction ends January 18th.
Yes,
So
it's 10
whatever's
days
gonna
they do
happen
that,
is gonna
right?
happen.
18th,
So they introduce a lot of bills in a short period of time.
yeah.
I might give you a call tomorrow, Michael, and see what else that,
I'd be honored.
all right, just visit with some other things that you might have heard about.
Okay, very good. That moves us into our committee reports. We only have one item on here. That's the negotiations committee. We have been meeting with the AEA regarding certificated staff negotiations, and we have another meeting scheduled for, it's a
25th.
week and a half out.
Mhm.
Yeah, the 25th.
I think that was upcoming, we've had to shift a couple of times already, so.
Yeah, so hopefully when we get together in February, we'll have something for the board to see. Things are going along well. Moves us into unfinished business. The first item on here is to plan and discuss our community engagement meeting, which we have slated for January 30th. I'll start out by saying, last time we met, we had talked about getting a survey sent out, and I will take the bow on that one between Christmas break and flu season and everything else. We just it never materialized. So kind of talking with a few of you and thinking about what we hear the most as far as, items that the public wants to talk about. Donna and I have been working on an agenda together a little bit. Do we have that
I do,
somewhere?
let me share it with Aaron real
Okay.
quick.
Well, essentially,
And then-
three big items. Budget and budgeting, student achievement and offerings and things that are going on within the building with the kids. And then the third one is growth and planning and trying to look into the future a little bit. what do our census numbers tell us? What are we seeing as trends, et cetera? I know that everybody would always want to hear more information about how we budget, what's going on with taxes and what we see, and maybe threading some of this discussion into it that we just had about what may be occurring down in Lincoln might be appropriate. So I see this as,
The agenda's up now.
Yeah.
The draft.
yeah, this is just what we've been working on. 3 main items, and then open it up at the bottom for questions. We had talked about the structure and how we want this to not be just a lot of one-way communication. But I wanted to move the Q&A to the end because one of my concerns is if we have Q&A after each topic, we'll get stuck on one topic and may not have time to cover the remaining ones. Hopefully we can get a good crowd, and I don't anticipate that all the questions will be about those 3 topics, but I kind of envision this in the sense I got from the board as a pretty informal exchange of information and collecting feedback from whoever chooses to attend. And hopefully we can use that, which is another item coming up on our agenda, to go into our board retreat. So I would just ask the board here, if I'm going in the right direction with this agenda, because Dawn and I will need to get it buttoned up pretty quickly and get it published out to the public. Is there anything we're missing on here? Any suggestions that any of you have? And we can kind of clean this up right now and then wrap it up and get it published
Right.
in the course of a couple
And we
days.
even talked a little bit about, there would still be time to get, a survey out and make sure we're on the right track. But I kind of feel like based on discussions that we've had and that we've had with parents and things like that, this seems like what everybody would want to talk about. So please feel free. Typically, if you send a survey out, people are going to complete it within the first couple of days or they're not going to do it at all. So I do think that we would have time to get a survey out yet. I don't want to waste everyone's time. If everyone kind of agrees that these are the 3 topics, maybe that people are most interested in. So
I think a survey would be good.
So
Even if we end up doing this, because this
Okay.
seems pretty comprehensive, I feel like a survey at least lets people know, tell me what you want to see happen. I just feel like then they feel like they've been heard, you've asked, and it probably will, and this is pretty comprehensive. but
Yeah.
At least we've given people the
So what I'll probably do is along with these 3 topics, put 6 or 7 other things, or 6 or 7 things total on there and say, what are your top 3 things?
And even
that you
if
want
it were, if you send out a forms, in my world, forms, but
Yeah.
you can do
we
a
could do
drag
that.
and drop and you can give them 8 different options and drag and drop and rank them, something like that, just so
Sure.
you craft it
Yeah.
clearly and then, but they still feel like they have
Yeah.
input.
Yeah, and I've had, that should be relatively, and like I said, we'll do it on Google Forms and it wouldn't, as long as it's asking for what we wanted to ask for, I can get it out and we'll need hours.
Oh, really?
Some good
Okay.
feedback, Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we'll send it out with our Blackboard Connect system and that's got lots of context.
And then it also
Emails.
serves as an announcement that we're having a day meeting too.
Yeah.
It's another way to get it in front of people.
2 thoughts on that. One, how do we get it to, and how are we gonna get a survey to individuals that don't have,
Yeah, we can post it to our Facebook pages, things like that, our Facebook page.
Is it something that we could put, I'm trying to think of the older, so that we can send to the paper? Or how do we get it out to people that don't have Facebook but read the paper? Or just another avenue?
Mhm.
Because that is another area that I've heard that people are like, I don't feel like we know what's going on at school. Well, it's in the paper, but there's only things,
And I wonder if we could distribute some paper copies at places where people congregate and have them
Senior center.
fill them out and we can either stop by and grab them or they can send somebody up with a packet to the school. Yeah, the senior center, maybe, whatever the good places. We could have a few available at the post office.
Casey's, And the only other question I had is, I think it might be good to have a fill in the blank open-ended one, only because I don't think even if you put
Yeah,
eight
if we
topics,
forget something, yeah.
somebody's gonna wanna address something that's not on there.
Sure.
So that's the 30th, today is the 9th. So that would give us really 2.5 good weeks to get that.
Yeah.
And then in terms of that engage with attendees, I really think we got a lot of positive feedback when we had those small groups the last time we did this. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think it was really powerful to, even if we only do it for half an hour, that if there was a board member or an admin at every table. And we were able to, at least I did at my table, and I'm sure everybody else did, little questions that people asked. Like I was able to just answer questions.
Mm-hmm.
And then it didn't have to go to, the microphone because I was able to just be like, oh, yeah, well, that's whatever. I just thought it was a really powerful opportunity to have a conversation versus like people.
And I got,
January 30th, it's on the top, you just can't see it. And it's on the agenda too.
Well, it doesn't say the time of day and where it is.
This isn't published yet, this is just our draft.
This is just, they're working on getting it all.
It will be advertised when we get it all set in stone, but this is just our working draft. So it will be the 30th, and it will be in the evening, we just don't know the exact times yet.
So I've had some feedback on that too, and I think there's some people that want to directly ask questions, so maybe we can do this into smaller groups, but yet have a mic going around. And I think, one of our board goals, and Michael mentioned it tonight, was, a lot of transparency with the board, and that's one of our goals too, is to have more transparency and to have more engagement. And, I'd really like for this to go off good so that we can continue to build on this. And that's just a matter of how we set the room up, really.
Because the way that we did it was we did the small groups and then we had the mic. So, any of those things that I couldn't answer like this, then we did a full group thing. I think there's room for both.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I'll stay in touch with you on how we set that up, and we can try, because, I want everybody to feel like they can ask questions, they can comment, that it's a two-way dialogue here. But you're right, a lot of the questions could be answered right there at the table too, probably, so, okay.
Jen just had a great suggestion, because we had talked about each board member possibly inviting some people.
Mhm.
Could we have each board member pass out a few surveys too, to get them back too?
Do you want I have my list. Do you want our list of people who
Can you
invite?
email it to me?
Okay, yeah.
Email it to me, it would be better.
Yeah, and if you have your list of people that you want to invite, I know Cassie, you talked about it, great idea, just send them to Dawn. And as you're reaching out to those people. So that does lead us to the next question, where are we gonna have this and what time is it gonna start?
Yeah.
I think we do well in the blue gym, having these in the blue gym.
Yeah, as long as we have microphones and everything like, which we will.
Yeah.
We'll have the sound system works fine in there as long
Okay.
as the- So,
Okay,
if
if this is a
and
2-hour,
we can have that gives you tables.
Yeah.
That you can gather around too, so.
so if we're looking at a 2-hour meeting, to me, that sounds like either a 6 or 6:30 start. What do we think? I mean, is 6 too early
Maybe
for
a little.
anybody that,
Yeah, it might be parents feeding kids or.
6:30 in the blue gym?
So what day of the week is this?
Monday, I believe.
It is a Monday, yes.
Yep, thank you.
6:30 it is? Okay. All right, so,
So then that would be 6:30 to 8:30.
okay,
And Marcia is coming. Or no?
I've got her sitting over here on hold. Last time we talked, the feeling I got from the board was that we were gonna run this on our own. and we weren't going to utilize her. Is that still where we're at?
I'm in support.
That's where I'm at.
Totally fine.
Okay, and she's fine with it, just let me know what you decide. So, thanks for asking, because I would have jumped right through that. Is there anything else I'm forgetting?
I'm glad Shannon brought that up because I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, I will have, a survey ready, I'll send it out to you. You have to be careful. So I probably won't send it all of you to participate in the survey to see what you think,
Mhm.
but I will, so I'll just email it out so you can
I can reply
respond
back to
as
you or I want
individuals,
to
yeah, so
Okay.
we don't violate any. We don't have like a group discussion in violation of the.
Okay.
And then we can get that out pretty quickly.
Good. That brings us into new business, and we have a bunch of policies on here.
Fortunately, they're not super long policies, but.
Right.
Okay, so what we have for review here, just a lot of things that have to do with our normal school operations, kind of like the housekeeping things, like how do we do this, how do we do that? So, none of these needed any revision except for, the curriculum review cycle. So I did revise that to reflect what year we were in and which one was coming up, so, pull that one up. That's really the only one that had anything that changed on it.
Just dates.
And it was just dates, yeah, the policy itself didn't change, but there was no sense in keeping things that said 17, 18, and 18, 19 on there
Yeah.
anymore. So that's where we're at with that, and that is what we're talking about when we're saying we're in this year, when we're saying we're in research this year, we're in adoption this year, we're in information education this year. We've been there with math, we've been there with science, we've been there with reading since I've been here, so maybe social studies too. Maybe social studies was in its first year when I started, so.
Yeah, so for Brian and Cassie's benefit, it's just a
Yeah.
rolling process always of,
And when we get it done, the language arts will come right back
Mhm.
over there and kind of review them. So, and it's set up this way for new board members to hear because state standards are revised every 7 years. So that's when the new standards come out, that's when we have to look at our curriculum and make sure that we're lined up. Also, the way curriculums are structured anymore, you pretty much buy a 7-year access subscription to most of your curriculum, and so it expires about the time that you need to revise based on when standards come to anyway. So that's really the only one that had any changes in here.
Okay.
As far as the other ones go, many of them are very short and things like that, or legislated, so I will just entertain questions if you've read through them, if anybody have any particular questions on any one of these.
Dr. Lewis, I just had one, it's pretty simple. And Matt, you may have to answer this too. Has there ever, on the reading through the calendar policy, since we make a mention of board policy on there to adhere to that, have we ever had a board member sit in on those calendar meetings? Or
We haven't, no, there's admin team, there are teachers that represent all like levels and groups. So we've got high school, we've got middle school, we have elementary, we have para, we have kitchen staff typically, we try and include somebody who represents everybody,
Gotcha.
that, group. And so that's kind of how we come up with that.
Got
But no, we haven't because the board typically approves it.
Yeah,
and
I was
after
just
that,
curious.
and that's the step. But no, we haven't done those, that committee work with the board member in the past.
Got
it. It's a good question. I have a question, Shannon. You can answer this for me probably. But one of our policies was cancellation with an L, and one of them is cancellation with 2 L's, and both of them like spell check you. So which is the correct? Two. Which is the
It's
British? It should be 2.
It should be 2,
So when you put
because of the ATO at the end.
okay, because either one, I'm like, it's telling me it's wrong both
I know.
ways, and that's one of those things. I'm like, maybe one's the British way or
Yeah.
something. I don't
If
know.
you double the letter if you add the station at the end.
Thank you for clearing that up. Yes, you're welcome. And I'm gonna put that on here. 1.
I could have got another 10 years without hearing stuff.
But that one has caught me over and over, and it's it's not like I didn't teach English in my career, you know, it's just one of those things, I'm like, "Ugh," but then it really throws a wrench in things when spell check tells you
Right.
it's wrong one way, you're like, but. So, thank you for
It's
clearing
not
that up.
wrong, it's just not the most
It's
right.
not the, yes. That's such a good answer.
There you
It's
go.
not the
English
most
language.
right. All right, thanks for clearing that up. I appreciate that. Anyone have any other questions about policies that are presented here?
No? Okay. 10.2 on our agenda is date, location, and time for our annual board retreat. Dr. Lewis and I have been looking at this calendar a little bit, trying to figure out the best time to do this. And we've landed on possibly February 1st.
Which is just a couple days after the community engagement meeting. It's not a bad time. It's a super busy week. That's what it does for you. But actually, it's still fresh in our minds. It'd be a good, debriefing from that.
I'm good that time.
Okay, February 1st. Yeah,
But that was easy.
it was
Jason,
easy.
Brian?
So what we
Yeah,
have
'cause the
typically
rest of
done.
February, there's like
Horrible.
something every day.
Yeah.
So we usually start that one around 5,
Mhm.
which when everybody can, I might go and try and get back to the country club, see if we can get.
So yeah,
there
let's
or
try to go
not.
back to the, I don't think we can go to the barn again.
No.
It was a grand experiment,
Very easy.
and they did a nice job hosting
Well, they're
us.
not open.
They
Yeah, they're not
did a
open.
nice
Yes.
job hosting us with
They
the
did.
facilities that they have,
The
the
thought
outdoor
behind that
stuff.
was to try to support the local business.
And we really wanted to make that happen, and it didn't work for a year, but they're not open right now.
Yeah.
So we'll try the country club again.
It's always a
on
nice
Park.
place to have it. They've got a good room there.
And we can say 5 to 5:30 typically is
Sure.
when people can make it, when it works. And again, that's usually takes us to 8 o'clock or so.
Yeah.
Right, are we gonna-
Mhm. Okay.
Okay,
So item 10.3 is discuss, consider the sale and disposal of surplus kitchen equipment.
yeah, we have some things. Right now, we would like to get rid of them as soon as possible. So it's the 2 serving lines.
Mhm.
And the old milk cooler and the planetary mixer is what we have. Some of these things are worth some money and some of them are not.
Yeah.
So, if we just, take action to declare them as surplus and authorize me to dispose of them or allow people to make offers and purchase them if they want them. But right now we could not, because we have them on wheels and they're kind of heavy. The trailer, the way it tips so you can load it, you can get one on, but then you can't get everything else on
Mhm.
because as soon as you tip it again, it roll off. Anyway, it was the thing. So they're here instead of at the bus barn. We kind of thought maybe we would have them at the bus barn, but they're still up here at school and we'd like to get rid of them as quickly as possible. So considering they're not worth an awful lot of money, if you would just authorize me to take the best fairest bid and not worry about doing a sealed bid process because it's not going to be worth a ton of money.
Have we, is there others, I'd like to purge. Is there other stuff in there that we should,
And I'd have to go
Thinking
down
about-
to the bus barn and take a look
or in
there
the
and see what
kitchen,
they're,
or,
yeah, right
you
now,
know,
right now in the kitchen, that's probably everything that
Okay.
we should be getting rid of out of there. When we redo the other renovations that have been approved,
mhm.
like the toilet and the sink, those things we don't want to, we'll just dispose of.
Okay.
And I can go through the bus barn and see if there's anything else that's really truly surplus that we're not going to need in coming years. And I can send you a list, but right now, I know of those things for sure, is
Yeah,
the serving
okay.
lines and the milk cooler and that planetary mixer, so.
Okay, would somebody like to put that into a motion?
It's already there.
Did I put it in?
Make a motion to declare the following equipment as surplus and authorize superintendent to sell or dispose of the milk cooler, serving line components, and planetary mixer.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Shannon and Chase. It's been moved and seconded. Let's vote.
Jason Earl,
Yes.
Cassie Fleischer,
Yes.
Chase Crackville,
Yes.
Brian Roger,
Yes.
Matt O'Daniel.
Yes.
Shannon Moore.
All right,
Thank you. Get that going.
motion carries. Item 10.4, discuss, consider, and take necessary action to approve work to bring fuel tank into compliance.
So I did visit with Lawrence. This kind of, it came together pretty quickly. This estimate, he was going to see if he could get anyone else in to give us an estimate, but this is for the fencing and the protective barriers that have to be spaced just right, working with the fire marshal. So what he told us is he would approve our plan for like our other entities, the village and EMS, to go ahead and use it as long as we submit our plan. So this would be, the plan would be not necessarily to pour concrete under the entire thing, but to put down this woven matting and compact some crushed concrete on top of that. That would be stable enough. And then it's really the fencing that gets kind of expensive. It has to be at least 6 feet tall. And so that's 56 feet to go all the way around it, including the gate, and then the pipe bollards or what gives you the stability. So we can put those in the corners and then at like a midpoint on those two. So it's kind of, so for the 6 of those.
Yeah.
Six.
I gotta say, when I first saw this estimate, I thought it
Seemed high, but
seems high. The other side of that story is try to find somebody to come do, you know,
and he can get this probably spring break, weather permitting. We can't get anyone else to come in. The kitchen floor, that's minimal, and that's some tile, some drain in front of
yeah,
the
that's,
stoves and things like that. That in itself, for 1,500 doesn't require. So it's the 10,644 that would all be going to the site. Now I'm going to back up a little bit too, because when we first got the 1,000-gallon tank, we were told by the company that sold it to us, you're not going to need any of that because it's not a big enough tank. So that's why this was not part of the initial proposal. And then when the fire marshal came in to inspect, he said, oh no, you have to have a fence around it. What's your plan for that? So this is where the plan came for that. So
Yeah.
we just had some
They gonna
misinformation.
share in the 10?
No, he's not gonna share.
Yeah.
It was misinformation from the company.
Was the company Nebraska company? I can't
Yeah,
remember.
yeah, it was based on.
Got it. So we just had that one bid?
Yes, Lawrence is gonna reach out to a couple other people and see if he can get them to come in, and they have not come in to give us estimates. We can hold off.
yeah. Try to get some more bids, and if we can't, we can bring this back to.
Yeah, the problem with holding off a little bit here is he only made this valid for 10 days. So,
Yeah,
and so that could be subject to change if we delay it until February, which is, I mean, we take a risk. But
so they gotta move the tank, put matting underneath it, 10 inches of crushed concrete or
Yeah.
something, 8 inches of
inches,
crushed
yeah.
concrete. Set it back down, build a fence around it with concrete filled ballards on the corners and a gate. You know what sounds high? And then you start thinking about, they gotta send a dump truck out there, they gotta have a skid steer out there to drill these holes, they gotta have concrete I mean, it still sounds high to me, but. when you
Well, it just
think
seems like a waste. We already got the tank that already has a double tank anyways. Why do we need this?
I get it, yeah.
You know,
And I think that's what caught us by surprise.
Well, that's what don't make any sense about it. You know, why they expect that we should spend something like this on top of doing everything we did before, and now all of a sudden the fire marshal says, oh, we gotta do this.
That here tracked me last year, and there's a 2,000-gallon tank sitting on fence posts.
Well, that's my next question.
Exactly.
With not even a lock on it, and it's like,
Dr.
come on
Wilson,
now.
only because this is almost as much as we paid for the tank and stuff.
That's right.
Can you rewind a little bit, remind me, I know this is a weird question, but reaching out to the fire marshal, that was a requirement through,
Because we're at school,
got it,
so.
got it.
So that tank you saw, somebody in that community said, here, you can use my tank. I don't know, was it on running gear or something?
It could have been.
Yeah, park it out behind the bus barn.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is
Was
it,
it UTM? Where was it?
Yeah, it was a UT.
is it because it's on school property or is it because it's owned by the
It's
school?
owned by the school
Got it.
and probably on school property as well, because it's just gonna be.
I mean, that's,
Does Alley Cat, is that a requirement from our insurance company as well?
I think
They
as
look
long
at
as
that?
our insurance company would say it's, as long as it's compliant with fire marshal, they would approve. I mean,
Yeah.
It's not an issue for them, no, it's the fire marshal. They'll tell us we can't use it if we don't do the permit, so.
The other alternative is to fence in the property.
The entire property, yeah, if your entire property is
That's the-
fenced in.
That would be the loophole.
Have you seen much?
But not
What?
just a fence?
whoa,
Just a fence.
back up. Why in the world would you have to have that fenced for that and not have any right? That ain't right. I
It
don't know
doesn't-
how else to more explain it, but I'm
Yeah,
just saying, that ain't.
Yeah,
ain't-
if the entire bus barn down there was fenced in
With a gate.
with a gate, if
would
we had
have
it
to fence
inside
in
the gate,
same.
then we wouldn't have to fence specifically around it. But that would be a pain in the butt for the buses to get in and out.
Well, I know it would be,
Yeah.
and that's just. I'd like to talk about it. So.
What's the kitchen floor thing on? the-
Oh, that had to do with, I need really Lawrence to explain that, but it's a project that they're working on, like the drainage in front of the convection ovens in the kitchen is not quite adequate, and it would just require like breaking out and re-pouring a little bit of concrete to make that flow right, so that would be summer work.
Well, why don't we do this? Obviously, the kitchen floor part, I mean, that impacts our kids every day. Dawn's got authorization to do that without board approval. And let's table this bid till next month
Okay.
and work at either a couple other bids, different ideas or something.
I'll talk to Lawrence tomorrow and we'll see if we can get some other
Yeah,
ideas flowing.
I mean, yeah. And there's a couple of companies that I'm sitting here thinking of that do stuff like this all the time that maybe we ought to come out and take a look at it.
Okay, and maybe Lawrence has called them, I'll find
Yeah.
out, who he's talked to.
I just, and maybe that's right. Maybe we find out that it's right, but that's, I mean,
I think you have to go off of more than just one bid.
you should, yeah, you really should. It's hard to get people to
Yeah.
show interest in doing stuff like this right now.
Here,
whether
'cause
it's
you got what, 8
school
post
or-
holes or whatever, and it's
Yeah.
$150 a yard, and
Uh-huh. Yeah,
maybe it is right.
if I'm gonna send my crew there for a day and pull, I mean, that's how.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll keep looking. How's that?
Okay.
Okay, last item on the agenda. We want to have the board consider possibly moving the February board meeting. Thanks to Mr. Shada, he brought up, there's a very, very good possibility that the girls' basketball team will be playing that Monday evening. And 1, 2, 3, kind of 4 of us really have interest in that with kids on there. So, what were we looking at?
I think the date,
The
is pretty, no, we couldn't make that work on the 9th. I think what we had decided is the best solution would be to begin our board meeting earlier that day,
Okay,
which is not great, but if we can't find a date to go on. So the actual date itself would be February 11th. And dates the previous week all had basketball games and things like that on it too, so you're not saving anything.
13.
I'm sorry, he had the 11th up and I was looking at his phone.
And the 9th didn't work, there's definitely, that was the date that I had when I had spoken to somebody.
I probably told you that.
Yeah,
When did I
Thursday
think
the
when we
9th.
talked?
9th is parent-teacher conference.
Parent
Yeah,
teacher
that's what it
conference,
was.
yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
the 8th, 7th, 8th, and 9th.
So what time do we think this game on the 13th would begin?
Well, and that was my
No.
question for Mr. Shada, he did not, they don't know
Oh, yeah.
exactly
Well,
yet,
aren't
but
typically
he did
girls'
think
games
that they
start
were
at
starting.
6, so.
Because this would be,
But this is sub-district.
yeah,
So, like the
For
play-in.
instance, volleyball, all sub-districts was, it depended on who we played and what seed we were, so I think like one game started at 6 and then the game after it started at 7:30 or whatever, so I would say 6,
do we even know which
probably the
sub-districts they're
earliest.
all?
Yeah, this will be in North Bend, But what Mr. Shada said is that they will not play more than one game this night, so it's up to North Bend to announce what time the game will start. And they will probably want to practice first. So they probably won't start it earlier than 6. It might be 7 o'clock.
Okay.
And I don't recall from last year.
So
Because
what
I know
would
we
that,
ended up in the same place
what would that
last
look
year.
like for the board members if we wanted to move this up to, say, 4:30? Do you think? I mean, 5:36?
Well, that's,
We don't have a business session, so.
yeah, we don't have that. But you don't want to.
I don't wanna close
Shorten
people
the
off.
meeting.
That's not
Right.
ideal for the community.
Yeah,
Right.
I don't wanna say move the day.
Okay, so we can't go earlier. We can't go the week prior because of parent-teacher conferences. But then later that week didn't look good either, did it? Because we're still going to be, well, potentially, you can't do it on the 14th because that's also going to be girls sub-districts.
Mhm.
And then 16th, I believe,
That's the
ends up turning into, would that be districts right away?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Or is
The
it
17th, I don't have wrestling on there.
Well, and that's the thing too, we run into. Yeah.
I'm just gonna throw this out there.
That's
I'm,
getting too late for us to pay
All
bills
right.
and stuff like that. We can't wait until the 20th
Yeah.
because we've got bills to pay and people to pay.
what does the 8th look like? Did we look at that Wednesday?
That's parent-teacher
Parent-teacher
conferences.
Oh,
The
8th and 9th,
7th,
yeah.
8th, and 9th, yeah.
What about the 15th? What was it? Typically, there's not things on Wednesdays.
Nothing there.
No,
I'm good with it.
You guys would have to have it without me, which is, I mean,
That's gone, yeah.
that's fine.
Oh, yeah, you're gone that whole week.
Yeah, I'll be gone that week, but, you know, if that's the day that works for everybody, let's do it then. Is that early enough?
It's getting late, but it's okay.
Okay. Those paid?
Yeah, the latest typically it would ever follow would be the 13th and 14th, so it's just one day after that.
When did you say parent teacher conferences are 8th, 9th, and 10th?
7, 8, 9.
7,
Oh,
8,
7, 8, 9.
I wanna go out Friday the 10th.
There's basketball then too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
at home.
Yeah, at home. Why does it start at 4:30?
This is JD.
Oh, and it's Louis though.
What?
yeah, you know,
Whichever. It's a long drive.
you guys are probably right. Keeping the time of the meeting consistent is probably a little more important than the date for the public.
So
Yeah,
would
'cause
you like
it's
to
not
go to
like
15?
letter or anything already.
Dr. Lewis.
Yeah.
Yes.
I did
So
not
there's no
have
church.
conferences on that Tuesday.
I mean,
Tuesday, there's basketball and wrestling and.
The 7th,
Is this just I knew once it was
Wednesday,
7, 8, 9,
Thursday.
so this one, this time.
Just
it's
This isn't the first time we've struggled with this in February either. It's
It
just this
seems
one
like
meeting.
February,
Yeah.
February always gets tough.
It's a shorter month. It's full of basketball.
What about the 2nd?
Oh, it's too early.
That's
We
way
won't
too
have
early?
bills.
Yeah.
We won't have bills in by then.
Okay,
so.
okay.
And we can't pay them, without board approval, so then they'd have to, someone would have to wait.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I could possibly.
and it is Groundhog Day, so
Okay,
stay away from that.
got it.
So I think the earliest we've ever gone like
Yes.
last March, we
I
went
mean,
to
it's gonna be
7th instead of the
exhaustive, it's gonna be
14th. I guess I
exhaustive.
just, and that'll be, then the 2nd would be the day after our board retreat. So we'd really be loaded in February.
Yeah,
Or the first week of February.
I think the 15th is still the best idea.
I think so too.
That'll work.
For the record, I'm not really in favor of moving the
Yeah.
date often, because we've done it a few times, so
I don't love
staying
it.
in the same week is probably the best of that option, so I would say the 15th is probably the.
And then at least we can keep it at 7. I agree. It's hard to move meetings. It always seems to happen this time of year when we have to do it, so.
Yeah. Okay. February 15th, 7 PM it is. And we can adjourn at 8:45. No?
Okay.
8:45. Guys, if you need autographs, come on up.
The chair
Pick the long
shifted there,
one.
I didn't think I could go through. Hey, but way to get it done.
Yeah.
Not missing a game.